Product provided by Nintendo. Splatoon is a game that oozes with colorful charisma. It may be the charisma of a 90s Nickelodeon cartoon, but charisma nonetheless. The first Splatoon graced the Wii U in summer 2015 and was incredibly popular on Nintendo's otherwise not so popular console, ranking number 6 on the top-selling Wii U games of all time, and rightfully so. Splatoon was, by every definition of the word, fun, and was incredibly successful for Nintendo's first dip into the online shooter realm. Now with Splatoon 2 coming out this Friday, we've decided to pit the sequel against the original to see just how well they stack up. We will do this through the following battles: gameplay, single player, multiplayer, and content. Speaking of content, we will be judging these games by their Day 1 states, because Splatoon 1 now is a much different beast than it was when it first came out, and the same could be said for Splatoon 2. So now, let's get into this fight. Without further ado, here is Splatoon 1 versus Splatoon 2. Upon first boot up for both games, they throw you into the character creation screen and then into a tutorial. Both tutorials do an excellent job at teaching you the basics of Splatoon, and for the most part, the rules have barely changed in Splatoon 2. In the first game mode you play, Turf War, your job is to cover the stage with as much of your team's ink as possible. You can swim under your ink to reload and get away from opponents, or surprise them with a sneak attack. Motion controls in both games are default, meaning that aiming vertically is handled through the controller's gyroscope. My first instinct in Splatoon 1 was to turn this off, but I turned them back on and now I can't play without motion controls. The same goes for 2, although playing in handheld mode is a little strange with the gyroscope on, but I did spend a lot of time playing 2 in handheld mode and it works surprisingly well. In Splatoon 1, you can choose between 3 different weapon types: splatter shots, rollers, and chargers. With Splatoon 2, however, you get the addition of dapper dualies with a dodge roll, sloshers which are great for spreading ink, and miniguns to be the Inkling equivalent of the Punisher. You can buy more of these weapons with in-game credits from Sheldon's shop. In Splatoon 2 though, using these weapons in the single-player campaign will help Sheldon research them to make better ones you can buy later. Included in these weapon packages are new special abilities such as lock-on tentamissiles and a ferocious jetpack with ink bombs. These special attacks provide players with significant advantages, but that doesn't mean they're invulnerable to attackers, thus making them well-balanced. Where Splatoon 2 drastically improves over Splatoon 1 is the inclusion of new game modes and modes that weren't included in Day 1 of the last game, like ranked battles. We'll go over more of that in the content section, but the new mode, Salmon Run, provides a completely new experience to Splatoon. Salmon Run is a horde mode where you or a group of up to 4 players fight off waves of evil salmonids along with their bosses. Defeating these bosses will give you golden eggs to put in a basket to help complete the wave. You can always do this mode by yourself, but it would prove less than successful. This mode, much like the others, is incredibly fun and great to play with friends and strangers. Splatoon 2 is just as fun as its predecessor, but with some additional weapons and new special attacks thrown into the mix. Not to mention playing on the go with the Switch's handheld mode is a huge plus. This is why Splatoon 2 wins the battle for gameplay with a slight edge. Even though it doesn't take center stage, Splatoon does have a single-player campaign with its own story involving the invasion of the dangerous species Octolings. The first game had you under the command of Captain Cuttlefish, while the second game has washed up pop star Mary from the first game. Both games have you going through different areas, each with a number of levels and a boss at the end. Splatoon 1's campaign honestly felt a little bit like an afterthought. While there is still a lot of fun to be had thanks to the glorious level design, it was never realized as a fully fleshed out campaign. The backdrops were dull and there weren't any memorable moments with the exception of the final boss. Thankfully, Splatoon 2's campaign is miles ahead of the first one's. Even though the story is barely significant, everything else is cranked up to 11 thanks to the same glorious level design from 1, but now the levels feel like they have more personality to them. How can you not have fun while bouncing up and down at the beach? But why can't Inklings swim? Are you kidding me? At some points in the campaign, Sheldon will ask you to try out his new weapons to get more information on them, and as a result, unlock more weapons to buy in the shop to use online. This may be a bummer for those who don't want to play through the campaign, but you can honestly complete each level in less than 10 minutes, meaning that the story varies from about 5 to 6 hours long. Some creative bosses make an appearance as well, like a motorcycle riding sumo fish and a literal oven. Much like the first game, these bosses aren't particularly difficult, but they will take some platforming skill to put down. It's a little too obvious really. Splatoon 2's single-player campaign is a vast improvement over the first one's. While the first campaign is still good, 2 has a much more appealing aesthetic coupled with some finely crafted levels, sometimes with their own themes. Splatoon 2 wins the battle for single player. The first Splatoon was announced up front as an online shooter. More importantly, Nintendo's first foray into the online shooter realm. As explained in the gameplay section, Turf War is a unique mode that only the likes of Splatoon could pull off. Cover the stage with more of your team's ink than the opposing ones. It's always a 4-on-4 match that lasts only 3 minutes, but that is all the time you need. With Splatoon 1 on Wii U, I never once connected a LAN adapter to my system and all my matches went off without a hitch. I never experienced any connection problems whatsoever. The same can be said for Splatoon 2 and I couldn't be happier. Looking for 7 other players in Splatoon 2 was a bit of a hassle at first, seeing as review copies were only given to so many people. Eventually though, I got myself into enough matches to reach level 10 to get into ranked battles. You know what would have greatly helped in these battles, however? Voice chat. The first Splatoon didn't have any form of voice chat, limited to only 2 buttons on the D-pad saying, "Over here," and "Booyah." This time, Splatoon 2 does have voice chat, just not in any convenient way whatsoever. To get voice chat, you have to use a Nintendo smartphone app that doesn't go live until the game's launch. Why? Why can't you just put voice chat in the system itself? It's such a backwards method. Even the Wii had voice chat for some games. I haven't used the app yet, seeing as it doesn't come out until Friday. Let's just hope it's less cumbersome than what we think. Another thing that both games don't have that should be a necessity in a modern shooter game is the ability to swap weapons in the lobby. I understand why you wouldn't be able to swap weapons mid-match, seeing as the matches are only 3 minutes anyway in regular battles, but not being able to change anything in the lobby, of all places, is just disappointing. And you can't even go back to the menu until the countdown is over. Thankfully, these issues, though admittedly frustrating, don't get in the way of how fun Splatoon 1 and 2 are. I sunk so many hours into both games' multiplayer modes, and I plan to do even more the minute I'm done with this episode. So much so that I would love to play with my friends the next time they come over. So which would be the best option for some good old couch playtime? Splatoon 1 had a local multiplayer mode where 2 friends faced off against each other, one looking at the TV and another looking at the Wii U's gamepad. This was probably the most disappointing feature of Splatoon 1 that was fixed in 2, where players can each use their own Switch to play all together, though everyone is required to own a copy of Splatoon 2. I'll admit, I wasn't able to try this out due to having no cool Nintendo Ambassador friends nearby, but the second they buy the game is the second we play some together. It is thanks to Splatoon 2's inclusion of a better local multiplayer system and voice chat, although with a super inconvenient way of setting it up, that it wins the battle for multiplayer. When Splatoon 1 initially launched, it was admittedly shallow. With not that many stages and only one game mode, you wouldn't have felt too bad if you missed this game on day one. Fortunately, this wasn't a surprise to anyone who was following the game pre-release. Nintendo initially promised that the game would be updated over the course of a few months with new maps, new weapons, new game modes, and Splatfests. Splatfests were monthly occurrences, turning Inkopolis Square into a lively nighttime scene, where players around the world would choose between two different preferences like cats vs dogs, Autobots vs Decepticons, and SpongeBob vs Patrick. Now, Splatfests have returned on Splatoon 2 already before release with the options of cake vs ice cream, and if you picked cake, I'm sorry for your loss. But don't blame me for it because I barely even played against you guys. Seriously, lots of people like ice cream. Wow. But anyway, we're going to compare the day 1 content of Splatoon 1 with Splatoon 2 and... let's be honest guys, I don't know why I even bothered creating this section because Splatoon 2 already has way more than what Splatoon 1 had at launch. So much so that a day 1 purchase is not just reasonable, it's encouraged. One thing that is missing in 2 are the amiibo exclusive missions, which you would get by scanning in any Splatoon compatible amiibo. Now, in 2, you'll get the ability to store your player data, get exclusive gear, take a photo, call it a day. In a way, this is kind of better than providing exclusive missions, because players who don't want to or can't buy amiibos won't be missing out on anything substantial. But even then, Splatoon 2 comes with regular, ranked, and new co-op league battles. Private battles are also there at the start, along with an online lobby where you guys can crank up the fun with voice chat, because that wasn't a feature that's been around since 2001. Anyway, I'm being too salty. Splatoon 2 wins this battle for content. Alright, the numbers are in. With Splatoon 2 taking the battles for gameplay, multiplayer, single player, and content, and Splatoon 1 taking... well, the verdict is clear. Splatoon 2 is in every way an improvement to the first already amazing game. But right now, you're probably looking for a final score, am I right? Okay, so, if Splatoon 1 on launch day stands at around a score of 80 in our humble opinion, then Splatoon 2 is easily a 90. That's a whole letter grade up. The reason why we're not giving the game a higher score than that is due to some odd choices in voice chat functionality and no equipment swapping while waiting in the lobby. What gives? Maybe we'll see that fixed in Splatoon 3 in like 2021 or something, where we could see Splatoon 2 return to try and keep its victory in game versus game. Thank you very much, girls and guys, for watching this episode of Game vs. Game. If you like this review format for newer games, please let us know in the comments section below. Join us in the next episode for when we compare Ocarina of Time with Majora's Mask. A very special thanks goes to our Patreon supporters, including our royal producer Transcendent Sacred Courage for supporting our endeavors throughout the YouTube adpocalypse. Without you, our channel would be toast. Please check out our Patreon for more details.